Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Kyiv. Today the Ukrainian authorities published information about the work of air defense. The Ukrainians reported that the previous night the Russians established new record. According to the Ukrainian sources, the Russians used up to 267 drones all over the entire territory of Ukraine. That was the biggest massive drone attack ever. The Ukrainians reported that they managed to bring down just 138 and another 119 disappeared without any consequences. Once again, the Russians were attacking all over the entire territory of Ukraine, but the main number of strikes, main number of drones, the Russians used in the Odessa and the Odessa regions. During the previous night, we got lots of videos of consequences of Russian attacks, lots of explosions, lots of drones, the work of Ukraine air defense, and many other videos. You know that this is very interesting because if we increase the numbers of updates since the beginning of months, we're gonna see the significant number of icons along the shore of Odessa, of the city of Odessa. We can see a lots of things here. We can see the work of Ukraine air defense. We can see the consequences of attack. During the months, we got report that the Russians destroyed some hotel where, according to information we have, there were some meeting between Ukrainian authorities and some special services of Western countries, including France or something like this. For example, this is the consequences of Iskander strike on the 1st of February. Furthermore, during the months, the Russians attacked several times the ports along the river of Dnipro. This is the consequences of another drone attack. So the situation here is very interesting, and I'll just remind you that according to information we have, according to possible plan peace agreement between the Russian Federation and the United States of America, Russia still wants to take under complete control the Odessa region. So if you remember, yesterday we discussed this. Russia conditions for ending the Ukraine war include Odessa Oblast to bring Transnistria home. The US air-earth interest areas lie just beyond the areas marked in orange, so there is more than a fair chance that Washington will also push to implement the Russian territorial claim. So maybe the situation and the things that we can see right now in the Odessa region is just a preparation before something bigger. Furthermore, during the previous nights, the Russians attacked several times the city of Kherson. As for this city, I'll remind you that Putin in July of 2024 reported that, demanded that if Ukraine wants to have peace agreement with Russia, first of all, they need to withdraw their troopers from the territory of Kherson region. So Russia also believes that as a result of negotiation process, a peace agreement, they will be able to restore control over this city. And during the previous night, the Russians were bombing the settlement. Furthermore, the Russians in their internet continue spreading information about preparation to crossing the rivers. For example, in this video we can see another military exercises that were carried by the Russians. During these military exercises, the Russians were preparing themselves to cross very long rivers and very wide rivers. Maybe the Russians indeed are planning to cross the river of Dnipro with the purpose to take under control the city of Kherson. Furthermore, during the previous night, several explosions took place in the area of Kryvyi Rog. As for this area, there are still lots of industrial complex, power stations that Ukrainians use to support their country. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation along the line of combat contact. During the previous 24 hours, we got another changes on map. According to information we have, during the previous night, the Russians improved their position significantly to the north of the settlement of Novokamar. The video was published by the 110th Mechanized Brigade, and here we can see another Russian convoy that were moving towards the settlement of Dnipro. The Ukrainians managed to destroy several vehicles, but probably 60% of these vehicles managed to cross the Ukrainian defense and to improve their positions. So there are lots of episodes. The video is very long. One of the episodes was located exactly in this point. So during the previous night, during the previous days, the Russians managed to improve their positions and to get as close as possible to the settlement of Dnipro. And the most important thing is that when talking about different mappers update, pro-Ukrainian sources Deep State have adjusted their maps in this area a long time ago, and they shown that Dnipro, the eastern outskirts of the settlement, were already captured by the Russians. Not captured, but this territory was marked as a contested area. As for the Andriivka fortified territory, we haven't received anything during the previous 12 hours. In the Dnipro direction, the Russians managed to improve their positions. We have another video that confirms additional changes on the ground in Russian favor. This video is very long, 12 minutes, and this video shows how the Ukrainians were attacking the Russians all over the entire territory in the Dnipro direction. Based on this episode, we have adjusted the map, we have colored the contested area into the area under complete Russian control. As for the Pokrovsk direction, during the previous 12 night we haven't received anything special. The most important updates are coming from Bilogorovka direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. Just yesterday we talked that the Russians most likely managed to establish complete control over some strongholds, some positions of the armed forces of Ukraine on this side of the Terikon of landfill, and today different pro-Russian resources continue improving their maps, showing additional progress on the ground. And by the beginning of the 23rd of February, the Russians, according to different pro-Russian reliable sources, managed to establish complete control over everything that is located to the east of this red line. So maybe during the next several days we're going to receive additional proof, some videos, and we will adjust the map as well. As for now, we are going to keep the map as is because we need additional changes or additional information from more reliable resources. Anyway, we will keep this information in our minds that most likely the settlement of Bilogorovka and the fortifications around were captured by the Russians. The next target for the armed forces of Russian Federation are the settlements of Grigorovka and Serebryanka. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the northern Kupyansk direction. Today also several pro-Russian resources reported that the first sabotage and reconnaissance group managed to enter the northern outskirts of the city of Kupyansk itself. We're talking about small village Golubovka. But later, more precisely this morning on the 23rd of February, several Russian sources reported that maybe the Russians managed to enter, but later they were forced to fall back. Now let's discuss the situation in the Sumy direction. We have adjustments and we have some changes on map, very important. As you can see, we have returned back the territory between Basovka and Novoandriivka under Ukraine control. I'll remind you that for the previous several days we've been keeping this territory as an area in contested zone or in the gray zone, because lots of pro-Russian resources and neutral resources reported that this village was taken by the Russians as a result of offensive operation. But today we got another video published by the Russian side. In this video we can see how the Russians were FPV droning, first how the Russians were flying above destroyed Ukrainian convoy of vehicles, and then in the final episode of this video we can see how the Russian FPV drone was attacking Ukrainian vehicles that was let's say broken or abandoned by the Ukrainians, and Ukrainians were trying to evacuate. So these episodes of FPV drone attacks took place exactly here, and there were Ukrainian soldiers. Most likely during the previous night, during the previous several days, the Ukrainians carried out several counterattacks in the direction of the border with the Russian Federation. The Ukrainians suffered significant losses. We could see the losses during the video, but the Ukrainians managed to restore control over the government border. So which means that most likely the Russians were forced to fall back. Anyway, despite the fact that the Russians lost control over the territories in the Sumy region, the Russians improved their positions in the western part of Lebedevka. Today we got additional confirmations from different pro-Russian and neutral reporters that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to answer the settlement of Lebedevka from the west, from the east. From the west, sorry. Yes, so the settlement, also we got several reports that the Russians continue advancing, and maybe during the next 2 or 3 days the entire settlement will be recaptured by the Russians. As for the southeastern direction, we continue receiving updates how the Russians destroying and attacking Ukrainian positions. And now, since the beginning of February, we got at least 5 geolocations where the Russians were using FAB 3000. So we see that the Russians are trying to basically to delete, to reduce to ruins this entire direction, and the Russians are not counting whether they're attacking the former Russian territories or Ukrainian positions. Most likely, and all these videos with the use of this new FAB 3000 tell us that most likely the Russians are about to begin another offensive operation in this area, and most likely this is going to be the battle, this is going to be an offensive that will resolve the situation in the entire Sumy. A lot of FAB strikes, basically the direction was reduced to ruins, and now the Russians probably during the next several days will begin another offensive. And that's it for the short video of military summary. Channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.